If you're over 70 and watching your hair grow thinner, weaker, or disappear faster than it ever did before, this is not just age catching up with you, and it's definitely not because you forgot to take biotin. What's happening is far more precise, far more biological, and far more misunderstood than most people realize. In fact, there's a quiet reason behind this kind of hair loss, and it has almost nothing to do with vitamins. It has everything to do with what your body can no longer build. Hair is not a cosmetic accessory. It's a living structure, and nearly every strand on your head is made of keratin, a dense structural protein. To create keratin, the body needs far more than a single vitamin. It needs a steady supply of specific amino acids, essential minerals, digestive enzymes, and proper metabolic coordination. That system works very differently at 70 than it does at 30. As we age, stomach acid production drops sharply. Protein digestion weakens. Absorption declines. Even if you eat enough protein on paper, your body may only absorb a fraction of it in reality. This is why biotin so often fails after 70. Biotin helps activate enzymes, but enzymes without raw material cannot build anything. It's like turning on factory lights when there's nothing inside the warehouse. After a certain age, hair loss stops being about stimulation and starts becoming a biological warning. The body is signaling that it no longer has the materials required to maintain non-essential tissue. And from a survival standpoint, hair is non-essential. When resources become scarce, the body protects the brain, the heart, and the immune system first. Hair is one of the earliest systems to be sacrificed. That's why thinning accelerates even in people who never had hair problems earlier in life. This is not bad luck. It's cumulative depletion. Protein metabolism changes dramatically with age. Research shows stomach acid production can drop by more than half, meaning dietary protein is no longer efficiently broken down into usable amino acids. Hair follicles don't need encouragement. They need fuel. Without amino acids, keratin production slows, follicles shrink, and growth cycles shorten. No amount of biotin can override this process. Minerals play a critical role here as well. Zinc, iron, and magnesium are essential for follicle activity, yet aging bodies lose the ability to retain them. Zinc deficiency alone has been strongly linked to a condition where hair follicles prematurely enter the shedding phase. In older adults, zinc absorption is often impaired due to changes in the gut lining and reduced enzyme output. Blood tests frequently miss this, but hair follicles feel it immediately. Then there's sulfur, one of the most overlooked elements in nutrition. Keratin is rich in sulfur bonds that give hair its strength and elasticity. Aging bodies struggle to recycle sulfur-containing amino acids like cysteine and methionine. Without sulfur, hair becomes brittle, thin, and prone to breakage. Biotin cannot supply sulfur. It cannot rebuild these bonds. It can only assist reactions if the materials already exist. Another silent factor is anabolic resistance. After 70, tissues become less responsive to nutrients. Hair follicles shrink when amino acid supply is insufficient, a process known as follicular miniaturization. Once a follicle shrinks beyond a certain point, visible hair production stops. This is why thinning speeds up with age even when diet hasn't changed. Blood flow also begins to decline. Protein deficiency reduces nitric oxide production, impairing circulation. Hair follicles depend on dense capillary networks to deliver oxygen and nutrients. When circulation drops, follicles enter survival mode and slow growth. This happens quietly, long before hair loss becomes obvious. And then inflammation enters the picture. Chronic low-grade inflammation rises steadily with age and interferes with hair follicle stem cells. These stem cells lose their ability to regenerate, and hair loss begins to feel sudden and irreversible. The environment around the follicle becomes hostile, and repair shuts down. This is why focusing on one vitamin becomes misleading. Hair loss after 70 is not about stimulation, it's about supply. And that brings us to the most important realization of all. Hair loss at this age is not inevitable. It is conditional. When the body receives the right building blocks in a form it can actually use, follicles can stabilize, strengthen, and sometimes recover. The body never forgets how to grow hair, it simply loses the resources to do it. Restore those resources, and the system begins to respond quietly, steadily, and biologically, which is exactly where pumpkin seed protein enters the picture. Pumpkin seed protein succeeds where biotin fails because it doesn't chase one pathway. It restores an entire biological network that hair follicles depend on to survive. Hair follicles are among the most metabolically active structures in the human body. They divide rapidly, require constant oxygen, stable blood flow, precise hormone signaling, and a continuous supply of amino acids and minerals. When even one of these systems weakens, growth slows. When several fail together, hair disappears. Biotin alone addresses none of these failures. Pumpkin seed protein works differently because it feeds the follicle directly. It delivers concentrated amounts of functional amino acids like arginine, glutamic acid, glycine, and cysteine. These are not just structural components. They actively influence circulation, repair, and stability. Arginine is especially important because it increases nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide widens blood vessels and improves circulation to the scalp. Poor scalp blood flow is one of the earliest and most overlooked contributors to thinning hair in older adults. Studies show scalp circulation declines significantly with age, starving follicles of oxygen long before visible shedding begins. Biotin does nothing to reverse this. Arginine does. Cysteine is even more critical. It's a sulfur-containing amino acid that forms the disulfide bonds responsible for hair strength. Without cysteine, hair becomes weak and fragile. Aging bodies struggle to synthesize and recycle cysteine efficiently, especially under oxidative stress, which increases sharply after 70. Pumpkin seed protein bypasses this bottleneck by delivering cysteine directly. Biotin cannot replace sulfur. It cannot rebuild structure. Then there's zinc. Pumpkin seeds are naturally rich in zinc, and zinc deficiency is widespread in older populations. Zinc regulates cell division in hair follicles and maintains immune balance in the scalp. When zinc levels drop, follicles prematurely enter the shedding phase. Clinical studies consistently show zinc supplementation reduces hair loss when deficiency is present. Biotin does not correct zinc deficiency. Pumpkin seed protein helps restore it. Zinc also plays a role in regulating DHT, a hormone strongly linked to follicle miniaturization. Excess DHT binds to follicles and causes them to shrink over time. Pumpkin seed compounds have been shown to reduce DHT activity naturally without aggressive hormone blocking. This matters because older adults are more sensitive to hormonal disruption. Synthetic blockers often cause fatigue and mood changes. Pumpkin seed protein shifts balance gently. Inflammation is another key factor. Chronic inflammation damages hair follicle stem cells, reducing regeneration. Pumpkin seed protein contains magnesium and phytosterols that calm inflammatory signaling. When inflammation drops, follicles exit survival mode and regain function. Biotin offers no anti-inflammatory benefit here. Metabolic health matters too. Insulin resistance becomes more common after 70, disrupting nutrient delivery to peripheral tissues like the scalp. Pumpkin seed protein has a low glycemic impact and helps stabilize blood sugar. Stable insulin improves nutrient transport and hormone signaling, both essential for hair growth. Sleep plays a surprising role as well. Growth hormone peaks during deep sleep, and growth hormone drives tissue repair. Pumpkin seed protein contains tryptophan and magnesium, supporting deeper sleep. Better sleep creates a hormonal environment where follicles can recover. Biotin has no effect on sleep quality. Digestive efficiency ties all of this together. Pumpkin seed protein is easier to digest than many animal proteins, especially for older adults with low stomach acid. Nutrients only help if they reach the bloodstream. This is why bioavailability matters more than quantity. What makes pumpkin seed protein powerful is synergy. It improves circulation, supplies amino acids, regulates hormones, reduces inflammation, stabilizes blood sugar, and supports sleep. Hair follicles don't need stimulation. They need an environment where growth is possible. And when that environment improves, the body reallocates energy back to hair production, not as a miracle, but as a biological decision that unfolds over time, which brings us to how real recovery actually happens. One of the most misunderstood aspects of hair recovery after 70 is timing. Hair regrowth is never about speed, it's about reversing decline in the correct order. When follicles finally receive consistent resources, the first thing that happens is not new hair growth, it's stabilization. Excessive shedding slows, texture improves, hair becomes less brittle. Only later does visible thickness begin to return. This progression mirrors cellular repair, not cosmetic intervention. Hair follicles operate on long biological cycles, often lasting months. In older adults, these cycles move even more slowly. When shedding slows after several weeks, many people assume nothing is happening because they don't yet see new growth. But internally, something significant is changing. Inflammation is decreasing. Blood flow is improving. Nutrient availability is stabilizing. The environment around the follicle is becoming safer. The body does not invest in repair until it trusts its environment. Years of nutrient deficiency teach the body to ration. Protein loss, mineral depletion, and metabolic stress accumulate silently over decades. Research on aging metabolism shows tissues need weeks or months of consistent nutrient exposure before anabolic signaling pathways reactivate. Hair follicles follow this rule precisely. Consistency matters more than dosage. Scientific studies on tissue regeneration show cells respond better to steady nutrient availability than to sporadic high intake. When amino acids arrive unpredictably, the body remains in defense mode. But when supply becomes reliable day after day, the body adapts. It shifts from conservation to maintenance and eventually to repair. Sleep plays a central role in this shift. Growth hormone is released primarily during deep sleep. After 70, deep sleep declines sharply. Fragmented sleep leads to fragmented repair. Improving sleep quality doesn't create instant regrowth, but it restores the hormonal conditions required for regeneration. This is why improvements often appear months later, not days. Inflammation also takes time to calm. Chronic inflammation doesn't disappear overnight. Studies on inflammaging show sustained dietary changes are required to reduce inflammatory markers. As inflammation declines, hair follicle stem cells regain function gradually. These cells recover cautiously, which is why progress feels slow but steady. Blood sugar stability further supports repair. Insulin spikes disrupt nutrient delivery to peripheral tissues like the scalp. Over time, unstable blood sugar teaches the body to prioritize core organs. When blood sugar stabilizes consistently, nutrient transport improves and follicles begin receiving what they were denied for years. Many older adults technically eat enough protein, yet remain functionally protein deficient due to reduced absorption. Only consistent intake of bioavailable protein rebuilds reserves. When amino acid levels stabilize, the body stops dismantling hair protein for other needs. Shedding slows because hair is no longer seen as expendable. This is why improvement follows a specific pattern. First, shedding decreases. Then, texture improves. Then, thickness stabilizes. Only later does visible regrowth appear. This sequence reflects biological repair, not marketing promises. The most important shift is psychological but rooted in physiology. When the body senses consistency, it stops preparing for scarcity. This affects hormones, immune balance, circulation, and repair mechanisms. Hair follicles respond last because they are low priority. But when they respond, it signals systemic improvement. Chasing quick results backfires. Constantly switching supplements or increasing doses keeps the body in uncertainty. Uncertainty maintains survival mode. Consistency builds trust. And when the body trusts its environment, it invests again, which leads to the final and most important truth about hair loss after 70. Hair loss after 70 is not a countdown timer. It's a reflection of how long the body has been under stress. Reversing it requires patience, repetition, and respect for biological timelines. When the internal environment improves steadily, the body responds steadily, not dramatically, not magically, truthfully. Hair regrowth at this age is not about forcing follicles to grow. It's about removing the reasons they stopped. When the body no longer feels threatened, hair becomes affordable again. That's how real recovery begins. The human body is not lazy. It is economical. It constantly evaluates where to spend limited resources. As we age, that decision-making becomes ruthless. When survival feels uncertain at the cellular level, hair is one of the first systems the body lets go of. Not because it can't grow hair anymore, but because it chooses not to. After 70, the body prioritizes repair only when conditions are stable. Hair follicles are extremely sensitive to stress signals, nutrient shortages, blood sugar swings, inflammation, poor sleep, hormonal instability, and oxidative damage all send the same message. Conserve energy. When that message is constant, follicles shrink, growth cycles shorten, and shedding accelerates. This is why quick fixes fail. Hair growth is not a switch. It's a long-term biological decision. What changes everything is consistency, not stimulation, not megadoses, consistency. When amino acids and minerals arrive reliably, the body slowly reclassifies hair as maintainable. The shift from defense to repair is gradual. But once it happens, the system begins moving forward again. This is why pumpkin seed protein aligns so well with the aging body. It works with biology, not against it. Hair recovery becomes a marker of systemic health rather than the goal itself. When hair improves, it means digestion, circulation, inflammation, sleep, and metabolism are stabilizing together. That's why focusing on a single vitamin never works at this stage. Hair loss is no longer a single nutrient problem, it's a systems problem. Pumpkin seed protein supports those systems simultaneously. It doesn't trick the body into growing hair. It gives the body a reason to, and when the body senses safety, abundance, and stability, it reallocates energy naturally. This is the part almost no one explains. The body must feel safe before it repairs. Safety at the cellular level means predictable nutrients, stable blood sugar, reduced inflammation, and adequate rest. Without those conditions, no supplement can override survival logic. Hair follicles respond last because they are low priority, but when they respond, it's a sign the system is healing. That's why results feel slow but meaningful. That's why shedding slows before growth appears. That's why texture improves before thickness. Understanding this changes expectations. It shifts the focus from chasing regrowth to restoring balance. And balance is what allows hair to return naturally, quietly, and sustainably, which is the only way recovery ever truly lasts. One of the most surprising realizations for many people is that hair improvement often starts where they least expect it, not on the scalp, but in sleep quality, digestion, energy levels, and blood sugar stability. These are not side effects, they are prerequisites. When sleep deepens, growth hormone rises. When digestion improves, amino acids reach the bloodstream. When inflammation drops, follicle stem cells regain function. When blood sugar stabilizes, nutrient delivery improves. Hair responds only after these systems settle. This is why pumpkin seed protein works best as part of a daily rhythm rather than a quick intervention. The body responds to patterns. Predictability tells the nervous system that resources are no longer scarce. Over time, that message reaches every tissue, including hair follicles. Older adults often underestimate how long deficiency has been present. Decades of subtle protein loss, mineral depletion, and metabolic stress don't show symptoms immediately. Hair, skin, and nails reveal the breakdown first because they are sacrificed early. When consistent nutrition restores reserves, the body stops dismantling hair protein for survival. Shedding slows because hair is no longer seen as expendable. Texture improves because sulfur bonds strengthen. Thickness stabilizes because follicles stop shrinking. Visible regrowth, when it occurs, comes last, and it only happens if follicles were not permanently lost. This is why expectations must be realistic. Hair recovery is never instant, but stabilization itself is success. Slowing loss means the system is improving. Many people abandon the process too early because they expect cosmetic timelines rather than biological ones. Biology moves slowly, especially in aging tissue, but it moves consistently when conditions are right. This is also why megadoses and aggressive protocols backfire. They signal instability rather than abundance. The body interprets extremes as stress. Gentle, consistent input builds trust. Trust allows repair. Hair follicles are not stubborn. They are cautious. They respond when the environment feels safe long enough. Pumpkin seed protein supports that safety by addressing circulation, structure, inflammation, hormones, digestion, and sleep together. This is the difference between feeding a symptom and supporting a system. Hair does not need stimulation. It needs permission. The final truth about hair loss after 70 is this: hair does not fall out because the body forgets how to grow it. It falls out because the body can no longer afford to maintain it. When resources feel scarce, hair is a luxury. When resources become reliable, hair becomes affordable again. Pumpkin seed protein does not promise miracles. It respects biology, it restores raw materials, stabilizes signaling, and creates an internal environment where repair becomes logical, not forced. Logical. Hair recovery at this age is never dramatic. It is quiet. It shows up as less shedding, stronger strands, improved texture, and gradual stabilization. And when regrowth appears, it reflects systemic improvement, not cosmetic manipulation. This reframes hair loss entirely. It's no longer something to fight. It's something to understand. Hair is not the problem. It's the messenger. When the message changes from scarcity to stability, the body responds slowly, steadily, honestly, and that is how real recovery begins.